Alright, so now we're going to cover chapter 14, which is about using visual aids. If you want to follow along in the book while I follow along with the PowerPoint, I'm beginning on page 259 with chapter 14. So visual aid advantages are that visual aids can help provide clarity for your audience to help better demonstrate things that you weren't actually able to physically bring with you by using, maybe you're using charts for your stats, or maybe you're using pictures, something you couldn't actually bring in. And you also promote interest in your audience by having something visual to go along with what you're saying. Ideally, they create retention because you're able to visualize what the speaker is saying, and you're not just listening. And if you have something to look at while you're listening, you're more likely to pay attention. Also, it enhances your credibility, lets your audience know that you're better prepared, and it enhances your persuasiveness as well if you're able to better demonstrate things through a visual aid than just by speaking. There are different kinds of visual aids that you can use. You can use objects and models. Some objects cannot be used effectively in classroom speeches because they're too big. However, you could bring in a model of one, or you could bring in if you're doing a CPR demo, you can bring in one of those CPR dummies. So I used to know how to do CPR. But when doing CPR, it's really just important to keep their blood flowing and keep being fresh oxygen into their blood to prevent brain damage. Yeah, like that? I don't remember. Anyway, you can also bring in photographs and drawings. Sometimes normal size photos are too small to be seen clearly without passing them around, which is going to divert from the audience's attention from your message. So, the same is true of photographs and drawings in books. So the most effective way to present these is to put them on a projector or blow them up. Graphs. These are visual aids to show statistical trends and patterns. And again, best displayed on like an oversized poster board or a PowerPoint presentation. Look at this. I'm just hanging out over here and not staying in my grade. Line graphs are graphs that use one or more lines to show changes in stats over time or space. Pie graphs highlight segments of a circle to show simple distribution patterns. Bar graphs use vertical or horizontal bars to show comparisons among two or more items. And then we have charts. These are visual aids that summarize a large block of information. It's usually in a list form. We also have videos. Sometimes a video can help better bring to life an example that we're trying to portray to our audience than using our vivid language that we already talked about. Also, the speaker can use their own body as a visual aid by illustrating how a conductor directs an orchestra, or revealing the secrets behind magic tricks, or even by demonstrating something. Maybe you're going to show a yoga pose or show us how to do sign language. There's a video for objects and models. We already talked about photos and drawings. There's a video on photos and drawings. There's an image of a line graph, in case you forgot what one looks like. It's also in your book. Video on a line graph. I went through all this stuff and didn't even look at the slides. When using charts, charts help listeners visualize information. They show steps of how to process something. However, when using charts, be sure to keep the information simple and clear. You don't want to overwhelm your audience with too much information. There's a video on using charts. Videos. When using a video, be sure to keep the clip short. Cue the start of the clip. Integrate it smoothly, like kind of how they have these PowerPoints set up. You can click the link open within your PowerPoint. And also avoid low resolution that's going to look too grainy once it's expanded up on a PowerPoint like screen and projector. When using yourself as your visual aid, practice to coordinate your words and your actions. Maybe you can't demonstrate and talk at the same time. So maybe you'll explain what you're going to do, like show your yoga position, and then talk about it again. There's a video on the speaker. The PowerPoint. This combines several audio-visual materials. Be sure to use it strategically and to enhance specific points. Don't put everything that you're going to say on your PowerPoint word for word. I have a really good example of what not to do for a PowerPoint later on. Don't overpower the presentation, and don't read from the screen. If you're looking at the screen, you're going to lose your audience because they're going to know that you're not prepared. Part of your extemporaneous speaking is rehearsing with your visual aid and knowing what the slides say. Having your stuff down on note cards and cueing on your notes when to do like a slide change. There's a video on how to use PowerPoint. When preparing visual aids, be sure to prepare them well in advance and not just the night before, because you need time to rehearse with your visual aid in order for everything to flow smoothly. Be sure to keep it simple, not too much text. Don't overpower it with all the sounds and the graphics, and choose a good color scheme. Oh my gosh, something else we're going to talk about. Make sure that the text is large enough for your audience to see, and by making sure the text is larger, this is going to limit the amount of text you have, because you're not supposed to write out everything you're going to say word for word. You're just supposed to highlight your main points. Be sure to use fonts effectively. Don't go crazy with your fonts. All caps are difficult to read. Don't use more than 2 fonts on a single slide. Be sure to keep your fonts consistent across all of your slides. And titles and major headings should be in a 36 to 44 size font, while subheads and other text should be from 24 to 32. On page 269, you'll see a chart of ineffective and versus more effective fonts that are easy and not easy to read. It's a chart of a PowerPoint slide talking about limited text, effective fonts. I just covered that. And oh, there's that chart. Effective colors, be sure that they have high contrast and that they're easy to see. I'm going to send you guys a PowerPoint that talks about using the opposite sides of the color wheel. Have a limited number of slides and be consistent across the slides that you use. Don't change up the color scheme for every slide you use. Use the same color scheme throughout. It looks more professional. Also, be sure to use strategic images. Make sure they're large enough, high res, so they're not grainy when they're projected onto the screen. Keep them clear and simple, and be sure that the title of the image is included on the slide as well, so we know what we're looking at. When presenting your visual aid, display it where listeners can see it and they're not awkwardly straining to see it. Avoid passing visual aids among the audience members. This is why you have the projector and the screen in the room. If you hand out like a brochure to your audience, it's going to be really distracting, and you're going to hear all those like the pages flapping back and forth, and they're going to be looking at the visual aid that's in their hands and not at you. Display something only while you're discussing it. Don't keep it up after you're done discussing it. And be sure to explain what you're showing us clearly and concisely so we know what we're seeing. Be sure that you're talking to the audience and not to the visual aid. So imagine that there's an image behind me and I'm talking to the visual aid describing it to you instead of looking at you and describing it. So let me tell you about this lovely chain that's on the cord for our chandelier. Yeah, no, I should be looking at you guys describing. I'm gonna be a news anchor because I can't like reverse it. And sometimes when I'm brushing my hair in the mirror, I still like brush the wrong side. So I don't look in the mirror when I brush my hair. Just when I'm like actually doing my hair, but then things get all cattywampus. Be sure to practice with your visual aids, writing in your note cards or on your delivery outline like cues so that you know when to change slides, and making sure that you're writing notes to yourself to make eye contact with the audience and not looking back at your visual aid. Be sure to check the room and equipment, make sure it's functioning, but I'm there ahead of time to make sure stuff is working, so don't worry too much about that. Explaining the visual aid, there's a video for that. And that's all I have for chapter 14. But I'm also going to post a video explaining the other 2 PowerPoints that I have that I'm going to email to you as well. So exciting! Maybe I'll figure out a way to like narrate the PowerPoint and make that a video instead of just posting a video about the PowerPoint that you have to play while you watch the PowerPoint. I'll figure it out.